Welcome to Miami Television News, where I'm here with Benjamin Phillips III, a sophomore here at Miami University from Fairfield, Ohio. And today, we're here to talk about the publication of his new book, A Lone Wolf's Mentality. How's it going, Ben?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Julian?
I'm doing great. So first, we want to know a little bit about you. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the Miami, Television Network and all the, students here who's making that a production. I mean, this has been a surreal experience. So like I said, my name is Benjamin Phillips III. I'm a sophomore finance major here at Miami University. And, writing this book at 19 years old has been kind of, a surreal experience. It actually came about with my father. He was telling my mother to write a book, Dr. Sharon Phillips. She was a clinical psychologist, been doing it for 20-something years. And she was on the cusp of finishing her last chapter, and then work got kind of busy. So my dad was like, well, if you're not going to write a book, someone has to write a book. And I said, it's not going to be me. So I said, you better write a book, Dad. He's like, nah, I don't write no book. So it kind of fell on me, and he just said, talk about your experience at college and how you kind of transitioned to your internship and in the first year and what that was like. So I kind of pondered over it a little bit, and the words just kind of started flowing. And so this book is about the transformation between high school and college, how to be successful in college and internships, and some basic financial literacy tips for students, being a finance major. So that's kind of the brief overview of it.
And you spoke about an internship. So you had an internship already as a sophomore?
Yeah, so I was very blessed and fortunate because of, a couple of my mentors who came in, Kyle Broadnax, Azab Zaray, and Akoswa. They kind of really prepped me as a freshman to, have my resume ready, have my LinkedIn ready. And I got my first internship with Ernst & Young, as a launch intern in their Cincinnati office. So that experience I talk about in the book, chapter 4, I think it's Sink or Swim, which is about, kind of being a freshman in a big office like that, one of the big accounting firms. But I mean, everything's about growth, everything's about development. And that was really just, thrusting me in the water and see if I could sink or swim, so.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So while writing the book, did you ever face any writer's block or negative views from people?
I think that, so a little background about how I was writing the book was, so it was over J-term. It was actually within, I think, about a month and a half span. And I was already, doing some of my consulting work with J.C. Baker & Associates. So I was kind of managing my own clients, managing my national sales team across the country. So I was kind of already slammed with stuff. But, I dedicated myself to this project. And so I would work, with J.C. Baker & Associates from 9 to 5 or whatever, come back, start the book from like 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I did that for like 3.5 weeks straight. So that kind of really was a tough time because I was, mentally fatigued and all that, but I would just put my jazz music on in the background and kind of just write away. In terms of adversity, I think it kind of really struck me to see, some of the negativity that came with it. Yeah. A lot of people were, inquiring, why are you writing a book? Can you write a book? You're only 19 years old. Right. What are you going to write about? Why would people listen to you? What have you demonstrated on like leadership, being so young? And so that kind of took me for a spin, and it kind of actually fueled my passion to write even more because I had, someone to write to, and I had a purpose for it, already besides what I was originally writing for.
Okay, so your book is about the transition from high school to college.
Yeah.
But how does that relate back to the title of it, A Lone Wolf's Mentality? What does it mean to you to be a lone wolf? What is it all about?
Right, so the lone wolf method is originally from my father. It's kind of about not running with the pack. Right. Like I said before, I talk about, being a businessman. Business is dog eat dog all the time. It's a very cutthroat industry, so be a lone wolf and always watch your own back. So, I mean, that kind of really took an advantage to me and how I really, brought that over to college. The first kind of semester, everybody's out partying, drinking and meeting all new friends and everything, which is good. That's what the first, kind of semester of college is about, is, that new experience. But after those first 2-3 weeks, I was kind of like, if this is it, then, let's get to the grind. But I would look around and everybody would still be going to the same parties, the same clubs, that stuff. So I said, okay, I really want to kind of hone in and focus on this path I have here.
Right.
And so, I'd look around and there was kind of nobody really with me in my inner circle that was doing that. Aside from, my roommate, Jalen Warren,
Yeah.
He's future doctor, pre-med star, all that
Definitely.
stuff, he's amazing. So it's kind of just about like, people talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out. That to me is just kind of nonsense, that peer pressure, all of those stuff. Because if you're a lone wolf and you know who you are, you know what you bring to the table, all that outside stuff is just nonsense. And it kind of was just fueling my passion for, what is the lone wolf to me? It's just about being great and about, just achieving on yourself.
That's great. That's great. So this is two questions in one.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a lone wolf and feels as if they are one, but they have the FOMO superstition? And what advice would you give to someone who plans on writing a book at such a young age, how you did?
Okay, so in terms of your first question, people who want to be a lone wolf but also kind of struggle with not being in their dorm room and kind of like want to be out in the open. I definitely think that it's a balance for sure. Freshman year, I made some of my really close friends and acquaintances by going out to events and sports, things like that. But I think that there comes a point where you need to recognize what you're at college for. So
Right.
I think that you need to understand that whether you're here for athletics, academics, your own personal drive, whatever, you need to understand what your purpose was for here. So when people are talking about let's go to Brick, for the third night in a row, or let's go to this event that we've been, pubbing for the last week and a half. It's like, no, I didn't do so well on my last accounting exam. This is what I'm here for. It's a lot of people who are here on athletic scholarship or academic scholarship. If that drops, then it's kind of like, that's it. Because I told my
Right.
parents they weren't gonna have to pay for my school because I'm the oldest of, 3 sons. So to me, it's kind of like, what am I doing for the Phillips empire? So when you
Right.
kind of start looking at like the real world, the reality of what you're here for and your purpose, I mean, going to, parties and clubs, that all is like it's just secondhand when you're really here. Tacking to your second question, I think that we've had this discussion many times.
Yeah.
Shout out to you for, kind of, starting this process of writing your own book. In case you all didn't know, he's a, super awesome model, signed with the biggest, label in the world. So that's just him. But I think it really is just, you just got to hunker down and write. Because J.C. Baker, who's the head of my company, he's written, 4 books.
Yeah.
And when I talked to him about this process, I said, I'm so scared. What if it doesn't get, picked up? How do I pay for it? He said, don't worry about all that. Just outline it, write it, and we'll go from there. Because once you already have it written, then, the other side of the process comes in, which is publishing and all that stuff, which is a whole different ballgame. But I want you to have that tangible project in your hands.
Right, the
because
content.
whether or not it gets published, right away, or it takes, some time, you'll have something to be proud of.
Exactly.
Because I hate to hear a lot of people that say, well, I have 4 or 5 books in my head. So, okay, that's great. Just like carve the time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm a man of action. I'm a man of my word. So when I told people I wanted to write a book, it was like, okay, what are you going to write about? I said, you'll see in like a month. So I wrote it in a month, and boom, here it is. So.
Wow, a month. What are your future plans? I know you've already written 1 book at 19 years old. Do you plan on writing more, or do you plan on venturing off into other areas? I know you do a little bit of real estate right now, consulting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my future plans are kind of they're kind of everywhere. Just like my consulting, I consult in tech, retail, real estate, healthcare, the whole gamut. So kind of my path is very, it has a myriad of places to go, but it's always upward. It's always positive. In terms of kind of future books, I think that having this first one out there kind of just told me that, this is something you can do. This is a real thing. So, I mean, because still to me, it feels like a surreal experience. But now that I know that I've kind of opened that well of knowledge within myself, I'm kind of working on, kind of the paradox of being, biracial in high school and college, like being too black for the white kids and being too white for the black kids. That's kind of in my brain right now, biracial Benjamin. And kind of just, me and my roommate, we've been documenting our first steps since we got to college. He's, bio, pre-med, wants to be an orthopedic surgeon, that whole thing. And I'm a businessman, and we're just two, young black college students trying to get it. So, that's also in the works. So I think just once you just commit to something and you see that it can happen, the future plans is just, it's just predicated on what you do now. I mean, I would also turn the question back to you. Do you ever think that you would, in your high school days, did you ever think you'd be such a big time model like you are now? Stuff like that. So kind of just really getting it out there and making sure you know what you can do and being realistic. Because once you've, passed that first step, it's always just upward from there.
Okay. And finally, can you give us like a little more insight into the book just for the audience, just a little sneak peek?
Yeah, so, the first, I'll go through a little bit chapter by chapter. The first chapter is called The Lone Wolf. It's kind of just the basis of what we talked about here. Second chapter, Metamorphosis, is about my high school days and kind of what really prompted me to be the man that I am now. You'll read about it more when you guys pick it up, but in high school, my dad was almost involved in like a very fatal motorcycle accident when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
So when I was 17, there's a whole lot going through your mind. You have the ACT coming up.
Definitely.
You know, I had, you know, basketball practices, and, you know, my grandparents lived with me too. My grandma, she's, you know, like blind, and my grandpa, you know, before he passed, he had like 8 or 9 strokes. So it was like actually caring for people. So when my dad got in that accident, you know, I had to be the man of the house at 17. So my maturity level kind of skyrocketed from there because I had 2 younger brothers to look up to, you know, provide for, and, you know, 2 grandparents to take care of, you know, while making sure my mom was doing her thing. So that's kind of the whole basis of chapter 2. Chapter 3 is kind of like, it's called tabula rasa. And that's kind of this blank slate, you know, process of you come to college, you know, what are you looking to gain out of it? So that's kind of just about my college freshman year experience. My 4th chapter is about my internship. My 5th chapter, Ascent, is about my, you know, trials and tribulations of getting into consulting. You know, how does that work when I, you know, being the head junior consultant for J.C. Baker and Associates? So that's kind of there. Chapter 6, you know, the last 3 chapters I think are the most important of the book, because chapter 6 is called Quotidian Balance, and these are the daily habits, you know, that I've read by millionaires and other successful people. Like, what do they do? Whether it's exercise, reading, eating well, like, what do they really do to be successful? Chapter 7, I think, is the paramount chapter for the book, because that is financial literacy. I call it Young Money. And it's actually the financial literacy chapter that I wrote for us, for students.
Okay.
You know, because I hear a lot of people saying, you know, I'm so broke now, I'm so broke this, but I see you at Brick, you know, buying like $40 worth of drinks. You know, so like, how are we managing our money? Do we know how to, you know, audit our own bank account? Stuff like that, you know, sounds kind of adultish and boring, but we need to get on it now. And the last chapter is just, you know, reflection and forward thinking of what I want to do. So that's kind of the basis of the book, of an overview. You know, I was just really excited about this process, and I really am excited for the student body and everybody else to get a look at it. It should be here, you know, April 30th. It'll be available, you know, in the Miami Bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon. This is a shout out to, you know, Greg Crawford, because I've been talking to him and his staff on having it be the freshman orientation book for the summer of 2020. So hopefully that, you know, gets pushed through, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. So.
Well, Ben, we would like to thank you for coming and letting us interview you, and we can't wait to see your book and read it. I know I'm going to get a copy. I know some of my colleagues are going to get a copy, and we want to thank you and have a good day. Make sure you follow us at Miami MTN on social media, and check out our Facebook and YouTube pages. Thank you.